trying to think of something we could just do really quick.
Yeah. So we're recording.
Oh, what's up? Live in beautiful LA, California. I'm on a little adventure right now, so I'm with Carlos. He graciously let me stay at his house last night. I had a delayed flight, actually. It wasn't even on the itinerary or anything like that, but I like to say destiny has no itinerary, so here we are. How's life, Carlos?
Good. Glad to have you.
Yeah, okay. So this morning me and Carlos kind of went for a little walk over there on the shore and checking kind of the area out. It's really nice over here. We were just kind of like shooting it a little bit, talking about this, talking about that, and it was a pretty good conversation, actually, because one of the things that we were kind of talking about, I guess, is just like, all of these conversations kind of happen in regard to like what's going on and like what's the truth and what's life and all that stuff, and what are the pitfalls of life and what keeps you in this matrix or whatever. So like, I guess like something I kind of wanted to ask Carlos on camera is just basically like, we kind of live in this world of duality, right, where two things are happening at once. And I think one of the objectives that we're supposed to have in this lifetime is to transcend duality, right? And that's like one of the secrets / keys to mastery that we're all striving to. And that's something that like a lot of us have to learn, even the ones of us that are still on this like conscious path. It is kind of hard to peel back layer after layer after layer of the matrix, you know what I mean? And we were just kind of chatting about it. Some of the common ones that I think that just come up all the time are like politics, right? Like this whole paradigm of like left versus right or whatever, right? And like I'm way more guilty of that than Carlos, of like kind of falling in that pitfall a little bit. And recently I've kind of really stopped going in there, because I think what I started to learn is that this little left-right paradigm is two sides of the same coin, like ultimately, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like if you're playing that game, you're not really doing anything. And in fact, it's more of a there's a transurfing kind of concept that goes in there too with pendulum. Maybe Carlos, you can explain that pendulum concept in the paradigm of we'll keep it in politics for this thing, but then we'll expand it to different examples. So dogs.
Nice. So a pendulum is sort of I would say it's a thought form. So it could be a group of people or a movement of sorts, and it's energy based, and it's basically, you could think of it as a big swing of energy of people thinking all alike and moving this thought form into reality, and feeding it with what their energy and their thoughts, and creating it, I guess, making it more prominent in society or whatever, depending on what it is. So
it's kind of like, it's interesting, and again, we're just taking a politics because it's kind of easy or whatever. It's like there's a left and a right swing to this like pendulum or whatever, right? So like the more you feed that split, that division, that duality, you give a lot more energy here, and then eventually it's going to build up and it's going to have to swing back or whatever, right?
Okay, that's back to that's in the Kabbalah, and I mentioned this in the last video I was in, that they speak of that as far as you push something one way, it will actually rebound the next way. So like, let's say right now we're in liberal, back to the politics, we're in liberal land, right? So that's what's the prominent idea, and all these people push this in, and we go into conservative land. It will eventually come right back, and you just wasted all this time. This will take like 30 years or whatever it takes to do this movement until the majority of the people are in this thought process. And then they'll be like, that thing sucks, and they'll say, we'll go back to this idea, and then they'll mess it up again, and they'll say, okay, let's go back to this.
So you're just in
a never-ending swing.
You're just in this constant swing. So like one of the things like that I think I mentioned this before, it's like, so how do you solve these problems or whatever, right? And I think most of the time solutions always come from a higher plane of existence, you know what I mean? It's like transcending duality is kind of like the objective here or whatever, right? And the way this matrix is designed, there's so many pitfalls, and it's kind of hard because it's very worldly, it's engaging, everybody else is feeding energy, and we all like to kind of get a little of that energy high, getting involved in these kind of things or whatever. But the true master basically ascends these paradigms, and they escape it. And sometimes you don't even realize you're in one of these like traps until like you escape it, and you kind of come from a higher place. And sometimes too, it's like a little demoralizing when you actually escape one of these paradigms, because like you realize how pointless it was, how much energy, time, effort was wasted on it. And then you also look at it like, you zoom back and you're like, wow, a lot of people are wasting a lot of time and energy on it. Like, it's just a waste of humanity. You know what I mean? And it won't do anything or whatever, right? So like, it was.
Although I will add something to this, that it is in both in Transurfing and in the Kabbalion. They said that if you understand these processes, you will actually be able to ride those waves and actually take advantage of them if you do them purposefully. So if you know, like, there's going to be a swing of something, you could actually take advantage as an economist. Like, if you know where things are going to swing, you're like, okay, well, the economy went this way because whatever, XYZ. Now you can figure out where it's going to swing back. You could actually start investing in, you know, the thing that it's going to swing back to ahead of time. You already know, and you take advantage of it because you're above it. You're not all believing like, you know, whatever, you know, capitalism is the truth or whatever, or you're not believing socialism is the truth. You're just saying, where do you think is the next thing going, and you take advantage of it by going to the right countries, or
you look at it objectively instead of getting like emotionally like charged from it or whatever. Because if you get emotionally charged from it, you're feeding the pendulum. It swings left, it swings right. So what you want to do from a surfing perspective, even a push down meditation perspective, you're really supposed to become more of an observer, like a neutral arbiter of life, and you just evaluate and discern things, you know what I mean, without getting too like charged up on them or anything like that. So it's funny you said that about the economist, because one of the guys I like a lot is Dollar Vigilante, Jeff Berwick, and his whole mantra for the channel is like surviving the dollar collapse and how to prosper through it or whatever, right? And he kind of talks about like in the 30s and the depression, basically, sure, a lot of people got wrecked or whatever, right? But a lot of people who were smart with their money, they actually were able to thrive because they saw it from a totally different perspective or whatever, right?
I actually think that the powers that be, like we call the elite or the global elite, actually they know these games, and they're always ahead of the curve. They already know what the next move is,
right.
And they actually cause the moves in some cases. They'll create the wars.
Because everybody knows, like if you watch the headlines or whatever, it's basically saying like booming, 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 recession will happen,
Yeah,
and then like
and they were already like
they're creating
set up for. Well, they were already set up for that. Prior to them putting that into the media.
They're literally so they're just they're kind of creating the game. They're like board masters or whatever, right? What's it called in Dungeons and Dragons when you're the
dude? I never played that.
I don't mean either. It's like the Dragon Master or something like that. Dungeon Master. There you go. One of the two words, master. So anyway, it's like the Dungeon Master, right? They're just kind of playing the game at like a higher level. That's why they're always winning, quote, or whatever. So, you know, they do it too. And like, it's interesting if you really think about it, because they kind of program our subconscious minds to create the realities that they want. That's why, like, if you look at what these people do when they kind of gain control of the masses, they don't target the banking institutions and all that. So they actually target the media, right? And then once they use the media, you know, that's what people are consuming, that starts to form opinions. And it actually just opens up channels for them naturally where they're like, okay, now I'm in the government. Now I'm in the banking institution. Now I'm printing the money. Now I'm controlling the stock market. And like, it's kind of like we give them access to this, you know?
They don't do the work. They just let everybody else do the work.
Yeah, they're smart.
They're just, they position themselves into the thing, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what topic. And then they'll let other people with their emotions do the work because they're all emotional about it, and then they get sucked into that whatever good or bad thing that, you know, they're fighting against or they're fighting for, whatever, you know.
So like, it's kind of funny because if you take this from a Transurfing perspective as well, like one of the things he kind of says is just kind of like ignore everything, you know what I mean? And I kind of laugh when I hear that, because it's like, it sounds kind of like what's the word when you don't care about anything in life at all? It's like I don't know. Anyway, there's a term for it or whatever. It's like when you just don't care about it. It's like apathetic almost or whatever, right? And but I was like, no, I don't think, like, he says it, and he says it kind of harsh, ignore it or whatever, but I think there's an underlying kind of tone to that or whatever, where it's like, don't give energy to it is really probably
unless you know you're already positioned to benefit from it. Like if you're purposefully doing it, you know, not like you're consciously doing it. You're not like getting all triggered or riled up about something and then, you know, giving your energy to that, or like, you know, let's say if it's political, you're gonna go picket or you're gonna donate money or whatever. If you feel triggered or like inspired to do that, then you should ask yourself, who are you actually serving? Why are you doing that? And is it really going to serve your purpose in that, spending all that energy and time into that thing? Because you might have just got sucked into pendulum swing there.
You don't want to be in those pendulums, because like, again, it kind of goes to something I mentioned earlier, like everything's kind of a power play or whatever, right? So the less you kind of get sucked up in these pendulums, the more you're in your power and you're not giving it up or whatever, right? And that's where like true, like, I don't know, mastery, power, oneness, zenness kind of comes from, right? You want to stay in your being, in your power.
and why don't you want to give your power to that? Because again, in reality transurfing terms, you want to actually accumulate that energy and use it to manifest your reality,
right?
The way actually your personal reality. What actually goes on in politics, does that really affect your personal reality? Very unlikely.
Right.
Okay, so you want to be focusing your energy is on things that are actually tangible, that are going to affect your real life scenario. So
right, and so again, this pretty much goes into like any paradigm where it's like us versus them, good versus evil, politics is left versus right, for example, or whatever. So like as you're like thinking about your life holistically, really sit down and evaluate like what you're giving your energy to, and determine a little bit like, is this unnecessarily spent energy going to a useless pendulum swing that'll eventually swing the other direction and not actually cause any meaningful, monumental changes in your life. So maybe take this note as like a good time to kind of sit down, and just kind of think about that in your head a little bit, and it's kind of hard to do too, because like again, I'm using politics. I recently just I told this in like kind of our last little group video. I was like, yeah, I don't know why I'm like caught up in it or whatever. Well, how much battery we have left? 20%. I don't know why I'm caught up in this. I just feel like it's something I need to do right now, but I'm like, I know it's going to go away. And like, I already knew it was going to go away. And then like very shortly thereafter, I kind of really like let it go. I just kind of washed my hands with it or whatever. But then what I've noticed was like, I was actually using that as like an energetic crutch of sorts. Like I was kind of vamping energy from it a little bit, you know what I mean? To keep me going. And when I kind of stopped, I kind of had like a mini crash, you know what I mean? I was like, oh my gosh, I'm tired again. It reminded me of like when I first did the program and like I decided that I needed to like cut off a lot of stimulants or whatever, and I like totally crashed. I was like, holy crap, because you don't know how tired you are, right, until you kind of pull out the rug from underneath you or whatever.
That's pretty interesting.
And so this just happened to me again, and I was like, geez Louise or whatever, right? So anyway, luckily for me, I really only been doing this for 2.5 years. I really only decided like politics were kind of interesting, and it was part of my awakening process or whatever, right? So it had some value to me, but now I see it from like very quickly. I've kind of evolved, and I'm looking at it from like the 10,000 foot perspective, just kind of looking down on it, and I'm like, okay, like I see how it's essentially a trap, and like it doesn't actually solve problems in any sort of entirety or whatever. And so like now I'm just kind of like, all right, well, I need to, like I did the evaluation I just told y'all to do. Look at it holistically, think about it, think about that pendulum swing, think about giving your energy or whatever, if it's worth it or any of that kind of stuff, and kind of move on with your life. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of something I wanted to touch on. Crap, there's something else I was going to say too. We kind of just make these videos up like totally ad hoc. So like we were like, can we talk about this? Can we talk about this? And we were like, well, let's just like start talking about crap and something good will pop up or whatever, right? So
what was the other thing? Was that it?
Nah, there is something we were talking about I wanted to bring up, but like I can't really think about it right now. So
I don't recall as well. We've talked so much today. Joe's here for 24 hours or something.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting.
So hopefully, we just kind of want to do like a quick one, just get it out, say what's up and all that stuff. And it's a very rare opportunity. Actually, I'll tell this story a little bit, right? So I'm flying down to Australia. So my flight is Dallas to Houston, Houston to LA, LA to Australia. I told Carlos about this flight. I don't know, I guess in April or something like that. He was like, oh dude, you need to like change your flight, stay for a day, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, I don't know if I really be able to, just because like, I got to get back to the office and all this other stuff, and I already kind of booked it and it was changing and all this stuff. And I was just like, nah, I don't really think, I was like, nah, I'm not really going to change it. But then we just talked like last week, and I was like, well, I haven't changed it, but I was like, but stand by, because things change, and if I get a delay or like a layover or anything like that, then like I might have to call you up and I might have to crash or whatever. Well, Lord and behold, the easiest leg of the trip, which is Dallas to Houston, it's like a 40-minute flight, ended up taking 2 hours because there was a weather delay. Like as we're flying, there was like a weather delay, so the plane like rerouted its course. So we basically flew like all over Texas to go like what is it? I don't know, 180 miles south or something like that. Something ridiculous, right? So anyway, I missed my flight, and then like they were able to get me another, and I was kind of like rebooking. I was like, well, I told the lady, I was like, well, if you can just get me to LA, I got a buddy there. So anyway, last night at like, I don't know, when did you pick me up, like midnight roughly or something like that? Yeah, roughly midnight or so. Carlos came and he picked me up from the airport, and anyway, I'm staying here. I'm flying out in a couple hours, so I need like good prayers from y'all that I don't go crazy in an airplane for 16 hours straight.
I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, so anyway, it's very confined in something like that. So yeah, anyway.
So it's been cool kicking it with Joe this past day, and hopefully we'll run into each other at least with you guys or anybody else that in
this
the
is
group.
like the first like Malkuth
Yeah.
meetup, you know? So we'll have to.
We're gonna have to do it every year now.
Yeah,
dude.
we're gonna
Like
do bigger
summer
and grander.
every
We'll
year.
have conferences.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be crazy. So.
What were they talking about? The push down conference?
Yeah, we'll have like push down conferences. Sort of, we'll all just hang out, kind of like close our eyes and like kind of look at each other. It'd be fun.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. Well, that's it. So anyway, peace,
Latest.
peace, love, and Malkuth.